Welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast. I'm Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler. What's up, buddy? How you doing tonight?
Hey, buddy, it's officially holiday break for me and you.
As you see, I'm here at my mom's house, rocking in the kitchen. I had to find the best spot for the Wi-Fi here on the downstairs, so I think I'm good here. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully, we don't have any technical difficulties as we roll along here.
If not, I'll just keep talking until you get back in.
There we go.
Director here. I think I can do that. But I think we'll be good. So we're both on break. We are not going to be doing any work until January 3rd. So full watching bowl season, watching the Hokies tonight up here, 27-27. Excuse me. And we have so much to unload, Brian. Tonight.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack tonight. We've got a lot of stuff we're going to talk about with the bowl, some of the opt-outs that we're dealing with. We're going to do some pick'ems later, but we're going to lead off with something that I've been kind of looking forward to.
Yep, we're going to be leading off tonight, guys, with Keith Goon Conlin, offensive lineman from Penn State, and Brian's former offensive line coach down at Hampton, Sydney. And just so you guys kind of know the background on Keith, he's one of three brothers that played for Conlin and Penn State. He was a starter, not a rotational. He was a starter on the 1994 undefeated team. For me and Brian, again, that's the ages we were starting to get into sports. Kerry Collins, Kajana Carter, Bobby Ingram, Kyle Brady. Unbelievable. All Big Ten in 1995. He got drafted in 96 out of four of the offensive linemen from Penn State in the sixth round by Brian's Colts. So even more of a place in Brian's heart as coach, and he played for his favorite team. Did have to retire due to some neck injuries where he went back into coaching for some years again for Brian. And then he moved back to Penn State where he hosts a weekly, 2 times a week radio show talking about Penn State football. So for us, or for Brian, it was just like, my old coach does something up here. Let's get him on. Let's talk about Fry and a little bit of everything. So, Brian, I'll let you introduce him.
All right, here we go, guys. He's coached him, but you guys can call him Goon. It's Keith Goon Conlin.
What's going on, fellas? How are you?
Good. How you doing tonight, Coach?
Good, buddy. How are you? Don't call me Coach or call me Keith. Call me
Keith.
Whatever.
There we
go. Like I told you in Hampton City, if I can call Joe Paterno Joe, you can call me Keith.
Have you on? It's been a long time since we chatted. I know we've had some. It's good to see your face, talk to you face to face. So, and I appreciate you coming on with us. It's been it's been a kind of a wild ride for us as Hokie fans the last few weeks. So, kind of good to get a little bit of the backstory here on our guy Pry.
Yeah, you guys got a good one. He's I always loved his defense, the way he coached, how his kids played, and historically we're up here, we're linebacker U, and we can pepper in a lot of good defensive linemen, but we never really had like great defensive backs here. I know all my friends are going to call me pissed off, screaming at me, but we don't have that many guys going to the NFL as defensive backs right now. But Brent really changed it. Mr. Coach Fryer really changed, and they did a great job with it with our defense in the last 3 years when he took over, when he got up here. And long story, he has Pennsylvania ties, but he had his Virginia Tech ties were a little deeper. I know that Coach Franklin had talked about how him and Coach Prod had talked about him becoming a head coach and not to jump at the first opportunity. I mean, he could have had a MAC school here or there. But you know what? He was smart, and he waited, and he waited for that perfect opportunity. And when the tech job opened up, it's a perfect opportunity for him. And there's a lot of people up here who are very happy for him because it is, he is going to quasi home, he wants to be. He's going to be a really good head coach. He's going to do well down there.
All right, let me ask this, because I want the perspective. You guys losing. For the Penn State community, for the obviously the callers to your radio show, to people that follow the program like yourself. How big of a loss is this for Penn State and James Franklin's program up there?
Very much so, because that was the steady force. I mean, we've had 4 offensive coordinators in 4 years. And Coach Pry was, I keep on wanting to call him, just say Pry, because that's what I would call him, Pry, but I want to call him Coach Pry. So, Coach Pry he was he was there all throughout Coach Franklin's career here, and he's been the man as the defensive coordinator for the last few years. And guys have got to know him, know his scheme. They played well, they flourished under it. Whereas our offense has really fluttered the last 4 years because, again, we've had 4 offensive coordinators in 4 years, and with Coach Pry coming in there and always being that stalwart on defense, knowing you're going to make some plays, and as a Penn State fan and as an alumni, as a former football player, I'm sort of pissed off at last season because we had a hell of a defense that got ruined because our offense sucked. We couldn't do anything on offense, and you wasted an unbelievable defensive year. I mean, the seasons that they had and the stats that they had were unbelievable. I want to throw up right now. We lost to an Illinois team. Okay, we had a 9 overtime game. We couldn't get 3 yards. After the second overtime, you had to go for 2. We had 6 chances and we never got 3 yards. Coach Pry's defense gave up 10 points that game. 10, the whole game. As bad as our offense was, Illinois isn't exactly, I'm not the 94 Lions running around out there, but his defense kept them in that game, and the fact that they couldn't punch one of those plays in to give them the victory really hurt. It was just, that was the beginning of the end, in my opinion, for this season up here.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of kind of strife on the offensive side of the ball, and I know you as you said, you've been kind of rotating through offensive coordinators the last few years and trying to find that consistency. I know you had a couple big players that have ended up in the NFL now, and it's been a little bit of a struggle replacing them. But I think the lack of inconsistency on the offensive play calling side has really impacted that.
And where it starts, big boy. Come on now, you know where it starts. It starts up front.
It does.
They're not getting the horses up front, so we can't run the ball. So our quarterback has no time to throw the ball because they don't fear our run game. So, it's been a tough few years because our offensive line has not really flourished or progressed the way the rest of our team has. We have.
Okay.
Historically, you think of Penn State, you think of offensive linemen, linebackers, and defensive linemen, and failed running backs. That's what the NFL was. There was a lot of guys going to the NFL, but we were pumping 10, 15 guys in the year in the NFL. We are pumping more skilled players in. I tell a story all the time. When I got to Penn State, there was 5 recruiting classes. There was my class and then 4 above us. 16 guys in my offensive line room went to the NFL. 16.
That's wild.
Out of like 25 guys. Nowadays you get 2 in the NFL in 3 classes, you're happy, and that's where it's changed because up here we're putting a ton of skill players in the NFL. We have more wide receivers in the NFL right now than I think we do offensive linemen, and that's not what we are or what we were. Again, it goes back to the boys up front. They got to get it done if we're going to succeed on offense.
Yeah, we finally, we got a couple between Wyatt Teller and then Christian Darrisaw that have, found some success in the NFL now. But it's been few and far between for the Hokies, and we used to at least have those blue collar guys that would, go to the NFL, make some more. Your Jake Groves and guys like that, and we don't even have that in that consistency anymore. Really, that 2019 line and 2020 line was kind of one of the best units the Hokies have had probably in 10, 12 years. So the offensive line play, I think, across the board is down. And it's, I don't know if it's the prevalency of the spread systems or what it is, but overall play is kind of down.
I got theories, and I think that you're not practicing. You know how I used to coach. We didn't beat the tar out of you guys, but we practiced, we hit. Nowadays you
Shoots.
can't have back-to-back two-a-days in camps. You can't, have back-to-back full pad practices where you're going to go live. against the defensive line, and then the linebackers a front seven or a scrimmage. You're not having that now. Even in the NFL, you don't have good offensive line play until the third or fourth week of the year, and that is, it's worked its way down into the college ranks. And I don't know if you've ever done any kind of college recruiting, but literally the hardest thing to do in college is recruit an offensive lineman, because you got a guy who's my size, who's 6'8", 300 pounds, or 275 pounds in high school. I could just pick people up and throw them around. You didn't know how athletic I was athletic. That's why I got all scholarships. But you didn't know if I was tough, if I was good, because I was just playing against guys who were much smaller than me.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to recruit talent right now, because is an offense lineman that good, or are they just that much bigger than everybody else? When they get to college, now you're going against somebody your own size who's going to smack you in the teeth, and it's how you're going to react to that.
Absolutely.
Very true.
It is something you're seeing every year. Every year. And you talk about the NFLs, they don't do the full practices anymore during the week. So, I think we could go on about this for hours. So Go ahead, Brian. Let's get Keith again. We're going to have him back on to talk about offensive line play, let you guys get deep into it. So I'm going to pull us back in. That's what Brian has me here for, Keith. Let's talk about this. During your tenure and during his tenure at Penn State, did you ever have an opportunity to actually interview Pry for your show?
One more time.
Did you get to interview Coach Pry for your show, or at any point in time?
I never really interviewed him. I don't really do all that. I have spent much time with him, golf course, just going to do celebrity stuff like that, and just sitting there picking his brain. He's a down to earth guy. I love the hell out of him because he is honest and sincere. I had an experience this past summer. I was trying to get one of my friend's kids recruited, and I said, "You're not going to hurt me. You're not going to break my heart. Give me your honest opinion." You know what I mean? And he was, and that's what my friend's kid wanted. He didn't want, he don't want, you don't want somebody blowing smoke up your butt because you're trying to be buddy with your friend. No, I said I want an honest opinion. He gave an honest opinion, and he was right in it. My friend's kid signed with Michigan, so Brent, Coach Pry said he's a Division I Power 5 conference guy. There's no doubt about it. He's an inside linebacker. He's going to do very, very well. We're hurt with numbers right now, or we'd offer him. And, he went through the recruiting process more and more, and he ended up going to Michigan. So I always respect Coach Pry for that. And, out in the golf course, he's a funny guy. We have a good time before and after the course. And, he's a very personable guy. He's competitive as hell, so you're gonna enjoy that aspect of him. And nice. He's been at Tech before. He's coached with you guys before. That's where he cut his teeth. That's what, like Bear Bryant, one of my heroes. I always read his books, and Bear, why did you go back to Alabama? He said, well, Mama called. I got to go home. And Virginia Tech called him, and he's got to go. So.
That's what I like to hear. I like to hear the interactions that you're talking about there, because that's something that we're not privy to. We just heard it through the grapevine type stuff. We were on board seeing what fans were saying. Right out the gate, we saw a lot of fans were like, this is going to be a big loss for Penn State. We were like, all right, we got something going here, because we had known a little bit about Coach Pry before this came down. We had kind of put him on. We had did a show where we had our list of guys, and he was kind of in that conversation, mainly because of the ties from when he was a GA under Bud back in the 90s. And, getting to know him more over the last couple of weeks, just from interviews and things like that. And now, it's nice getting that kind of somebody that's had one-on-one interactions with him, getting that perspective is really nice.
The man can bring the pressure, so he reminds me of Bud a whole bunch, buddy. He learned from him. He can put the pressure on the quarterback. He brings blitzers from everywhere at times, man. So you're going to have it's going to be an exciting time down there for you guys, and hopefully the offense can catch up. And I've always appreciated, liked and loved the Hokies. Got to know your boy J.C. Price pretty good back when we played in the Senior Bowl together. I was just like how you reached out Twitter to me. I reached out to him on Facebook, and I said, hey, listen. I said, Pry's a great guy. I said, you just tell him Goon, and then and this and that. And he said, okay, yeah, I'll tell him that I know you, Goon. And I had no idea, but like 5 minutes later, there's a picture of him with Pry back when they were playing and coaching together. And I was like, well, I guess I really need to do a freaking introduction to the guy.
That's funny.
Yeah, I did see that they're already pulling in recruits. They're going to pull. They're going to they're going to go back to your power bases. I mean, that's what you're going to go back to. I don't want to say they're going to go back to. You don't want to go back to. I'd say this is the problem with Penn State, which is, we got to go back to the Paterno way. It's a different world, man. It's a different world. So,
yeah,
Beamer always recruited the East Coast very, very well, and he got a lot of the tough little Central and Western Virginia kids. You expect to hammer those areas, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Just looking at how he was approaching refocusing on the footprint for Virginia Tech, because that was definitely something that we got away from under Fuente, whether it was targeting kids from Texas, whether it was just not having the relationships in the high schools in Virginia like we had under Beamer. There were so many different things that kind of put a hamper on the recruiting side of things for the Hokies, and I feel like just in a matter of weeks, and I think between that and between what JC was able to do kind of as an interim closing out the year, it's kind of felt night and day as a Hokie fan. So we definitely got that the honeymoon is in full swing for us right now. So, but I did want to ask you this. I know Price said he was bringing in a 4-3 defense. We know kind of he's a Bud disciple. What are some? I know you talked a little bit about scheme, but what are some other things from a scheme perspective and philosophy perspective that you see from Coach Price's defenses?
Well, he's going to figure out who your best football player is out there, and he's going to make him make plays. I just look at Micah Parsons, and Micah Parsons might win NFL Rookie of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie, which is that's only one person who's done that, and that's Lawrence Taylor. So that's the kind of person that Brent had, that Coach Pry is producing, and he's going to go out there and find that guy. And he is going to make him be that joker guy, the guy going in and out, up. He's an outside linebacker. He's a down defensive end. He's a middle linebacker. So he's just going to cause havoc out there. Me having coached down in the Richmond and Hampton, Sydney, and recruited the Eastern Shore area, there is a bevy of those type of athletes down there who can fulfill that position for him. So he's just got to get the right guys in there, and he'll plug them in, and he's going to get pressure. I mean, his thing is, if he can get there with 4 or 5, it's okay. But if he needs to bring pressure, he'll dial it up. So it's all about pressure. You know where that comes from. You know where he's coming from with all that. So he's a dynamic guy, and you're going to have some. Like I said, you're going to have a lot of fun these next few years, and hopefully it's a long time.
I love what you say right there about if he has a guy like Micah Parsons, or if he has that. Let's say it. If he has that stud, he's going to tell that stud, you're going to do a little bit of everything. Who is it? Dan Quinn right now is doing the same thing with Micah in Dallas. It's like, Absolutely. You're going to play Mike. You're going to play outside. You're going to play off edge. You're going to do everything. Yeah. What, the other week he almost had a pick because he was playing like with the back cover or the back of a cover 3 because he dropped. And I love it's
probably like a Tampa 2, and he was deep in the middle there. Yeah.
It's exactly what it was crazy to see. But let me ask this, because the scheme I think we're going to be kind of familiar with because of having Bud for close to pretty much our whole lives. What about in-game adjustments? Is he one where it's kind of, let's say you just mentioned it, he's got to bring 6, but they're beating him with 6, and he's got to. Do you see him back off, or what does he do when that thing happens? When game plan 1 doesn't work?
I never saw him back off of anything. If anything, he just dials more up, to be honest with you. I mean, he really gets after it. I mean, he wants that pressure on that quarterback. He wants those quarterbacks making decisions and making bad decisions at that. And, going back to Micah, and, we had a kid, a couple of kids this year, and I think that Ryan Clark from Pittsburgh Steelers, he's on ESPN. He said that if Micah played middle linebacker, he'd have 150 tackles, and if he played defensive end every play, he'd have 25 sacks. So he is literally that type of guy, So he's going to find that guy, and he's going to make him, say like Kurt, you just said, he's going to make. Hey, I'm going to have you doing this. I'm going to have you doing that. You've got to make the plays, and guys are going to follow you, and you got to be the leader out there. And he'll find it. There's no doubt in my mind. You guys may already even have it down there, and he's already working those schemes to figure out who his best guy is, and then they're going to make him into that type of guy.
Yeah, and let's talk about that because you're talking about his best guy. Is his type of defense one that relies on like those talented players to be successful, or is the additional talent that he can get in from the recruiting icing on the cake?
One thing I have noticed about him, and I don't know if it's the defensive line that does it, but they rotate the hell out of him. They play about 12 to 15 guys up front in the front seven. I mean, they really do. I mean, that was as an offensive lineman, it was always the hardest thing to do was to go against a player who bought it every play. You got some slobs out there who would take a play off here or there, and you got a guy who is coming in fresh every third play. He's going to go 110 miles an hour, and that's the hardest guys to block and the hardest guys to go against. So expect not to have one of that type of guy. Expect to have he's going to be grooming one or two or three of those guys. He loves the defensive end pressure, and then the big guys in the middle getting a little bit of push up front and cleaning up the quarterbacks. But I got to go back. He loves bringing pressure. I mean, I don't think Penn State has corner blitzed in the 150 years into playing football as much as they have the last 2 or 3 years.
That is a staple of a Bud. And if you're the boundary corner in that defense, be ready because you have every responsibility.
And you better bring it, yeah.
I mean, and I love that because when you just made me – I asked you about bringing 6. It sounds like his adjustment will be we're going to bring 7. Eventually, you're not going to have enough time to block us, and we're going to pop your quarterback, or you're going to make a mistake, which is, again, I think that's what we dealt with for so long in these last few years with Bud not being there. Me and Brian had the absolute privilege of going to Bud's last game in Lane Stadium where he pitched a shutout against Pitt, 28-0 in the rain, and it was mastery that day. So it was wild to see. But let me ask this, and you've kind of hit on it, so I think I know where you're going to go with it. How does he handle when adversity hits? When you're not winning Big Tens and going to Rose Bowl? Kind of like this season. Because even though his defense was lights out, I mean, how he held down Ohio State, I watched a little bit of that game. How he held down that offense was absolutely impressive. But when it's the adversity, and like you say, you give up 10 points to Illinois, you stop them all but one time in overtime.
Yep.
What's he like when that happens?
Buddy, they didn't quit the whole year, in my opinion. There were certain players that I suspected quit, but as a whole, those guys played. And anybody who's played football in the past, and if you're so dominant on one side of the ball. I.e., when I was playing for Penn State, our offense was dominant. So, we would, if we weren't, there would be a little bit of angst going on amongst the offense and the defense a little bit. I mean, the fact that they even played and won games after that Illinois game, when that defense they literally should have been fighting the offense in the locker room at halftime, in my opinion. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, if it's like, just need one stop. Just do us a favor. We're busting our asses out here. Help us out. Get a score, or give me a touchdown, give me a field goal, hold them, this and that. So the fact that he kept those guys playing as hard as they did, even going into that Ohio State game, that was coming off of a horrible 2 or 3 game span versus Iowa, versus Illinois, and just a bad losses. But to have them recoup and go out there and play the way they did was great. Having Michigan, they were beating Michigan until the last 3 minutes of that game, and it was nothing to do with it was a fluky type of play that beat us and that Michigan beat us with. Wasn't anything to do with them, but he kept those guys playing hard all year, even when our offense was so inept, and he kept those guys going. Even again, there should have been angst amongst the offense and the defense, and I didn't see it on the sideline, or I didn't see it on television or hear anything about it. But I know what I would have done if I was a defensive player and we had just lost a 9-10 game to a 2-7 team. There would be blood in the locker room, and it wouldn't just be me; it would be all of us.
Yeah. It's wild. I mean, holding a locker room together like that it definitely has to be hard, especially with. I mean, we experienced some of that with the Hokies this year. The season kind of started off. Defense was playing well. Offense couldn't get it going. Then towards the end, defense started letting things away. Offense settled in a little bit on the ground game, but the guys kept fighting. I'll credit JC with after Fuente was let go, kind of holding that locker room together and going into the Commonwealth Cup and getting one from UVA there to close things out. But let's talk about something else a little bit here. We talked about adversity. How does Pry handle the successes? Is he more kind of even keel, or does he kind of let his emotions hang out there like we've known Bud Foster in the past?
But every experience I've ever had with him was he was even keel the whole time. He could have been, maybe celebrating a beer or an extra beer or two after a game here and there, but it was always about getting on to the next game and moving on. It was, after a bad loss, it's like, okay, we got to get moving on. You can't dwell on your losses too much. You can't dwell on your wins as much. So, I noticed one thing about Coach Franklin and his staff up here, which we never really had up here, and these guys are dynamic recruiters. I mean, Coach Pry is going to go out there, and they're going to find these superstar players that are going to fit their program. And they're going to be a fresh program, and they're going to want to play their guys. So he's going to have very good recruiting classes the next few years because, one, he works his tail off at recruiting, and he's going to bring the guys in, and guys are going to want to go there and play because they want to play for, he's going to want to play his first or second year guys that he recruited type of thing. You never want to think that, but it's sort of true. If there's a guy been there for 4 years, he's got one more year left, he could help you out in this scheme, but, you want it's the future you're worried about. And I think that's what his biggest asset is that he can recruit, he can coach, and these guys play hard for him.
Yeah, that's probably doubly true for the Hokies because we've had so many opt-outs here and some transfer portal issues in the past. We've got probably 19 guys on the current roster between opt-outs and seniors and everything else that are kind of moving out of the program coming in. We're going to have the young guys are going to have opportunities, especially guys that are enrolled. We got, I think, 22 in this class. Half of them are enrolling early. So we're going to have guys that are going to get some opportunity in the spring here too. So it'll be nice to see if some of those guys that he had because I know a couple of the guys that were in our class he had looked at when he was at Penn State. Gunnar Givens was probably the biggest one there.
Yep. But also
the whole transfer portal thing. I mean, I talk about Coach Franklin has brought in the number 6 recruiting class in the country. And he's had top 10 in the last 3 or 4 years. So it's like the whole transfer portal. He has to recruit, and then Coach Pry will learn this, and he's doing it now. But you're literally re-recruiting your team every year, and it's just such a different game than we know that you guys grew up in, that I played in, you guys played in. It's nowhere even close. And to get off to ride my horse here a little bit and say, after the signing day fiasco down at Jackson State, Florida State, after a $1.5 million deal from a Barstool Sports transfer, a kid drops Florida State to go to Jackson State. Okay, well, that's fine if you want to go there, that's fine. But it was money that made him go there. So the days of us experiencing and loving college football that 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago, those days are over, man. And it's sad to think about, but this is where it is. This is where we're at right now. And you got a young coach right now who understands the game, understands recruiting, and he's dynamic as hell. So he will take advantage of that transfer portal and bring some players in for you guys.
And I think I'm going to go, Keith, what you just said about using the transfer portal and having his guys. As weird as the COVID thing was and guys getting extra years and having more scholarships, but as Brian has already said, as many guys leaving, Coach Pry's going to be he's going to be able to go to the portal and find his guys. He's going to be able to say, I recruited this kid 2 years ago. He went to Michigan State, but now he's in the portal. I'm picking up my phone. I'm calling him because
you still have his cell number, man.
Yeah, exactly. And they do. And for him, and you take Michigan State this year. I know you guys lost to them. Did anybody see them winning any more than 5 or 6 games? In the way Mel Tucker hit the portal, found his guys to put in certain positions, going and getting Kenneth Walker from Wake Forest. The opportunity's there, and every time you hear Coach Pride talk, our interviews, he was at what we call Tech Talk Live, he talks about the portal. He is going to have specific guys focused on the portal. So
there's no doubt.
And for me, for us as fans, you kind of love it because if he doesn't like what he sees we currently have on roster, he's going to go fishing for him.
No doubt.
And it's not going to take long to put his team together.
Yeah, we have a new basketball coach up here, and we had talked about how he went out and got 4 or 5 guys off the transfer portal, and it's the same way with the football portal. And that is, okay, you know what? Maybe you guys need a left tackle. So there's 3 guys out there. You got to go out and recruit. You got to go. It's a lot easier to build your team rather than going out, going to a high school and saying, hey, we need a left tackle. We need you in 2 years. So I got a question for you. Think about, say you spend $10 million in recruiting right now, high school recruiting. You may as well drop it down to $5 million high school recruiting and $5 million transfer portal. That's where we're at right now. So why would you spend the majority of your time and your staff's expertise out there? You have to do the high school recruiting. Yes, you have to do that. But you can also go to that transfer portal and pick what you want. And, the transfer portal and the NIL thing's changing the game a little bit because it's a lot easier to get rid of guys, too. It's like, hey, not working out here, why don't you jump in that portal? When as I played, if a kid was a bust, he was there for 4 or 5 years, no doubt. You were stuck with them, You were
riding it out.
Nowadays, it's hey, it's not working out. You need to skedaddle, get the hell out of here, and that's good and bad. But Coach Pry could go out right now and he can pick up whatever he could go food shopping at the grocery store right now and pick out all the ingredients of the stew he wants to make.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the crazy thing about the transfer portal is that we're seeing the problem that the Hokies have had is roster management overall. We've been a little bit too dependent on the transfer portal to even have what I would consider a reasonable roster. The quarterback position is probably the biggest one going into this offseason where we just had Braxton Burmeister hit the transfer portal. Knox Kadum, the backup, at the transfer portal. So we got another kid that transferred from A&M a year ago. Then we
lost 2 more to the transfer portal and one who tore it up at Tennessee. So
Yeah.
we're talking about roster management. And then there's other players, like we had a kid go to Central Michigan. And I know that's G5, but Khalil Pimpleton tore up Central Michigan. I feel like we're coming off a staff that it was apparently the kid that went to Central Michigan, he ran good routes, he had speed, he was dynamic, but he had struggles catching. And it almost irritates you. You see this kid catching everything up there. It's like you didn't want to take the time to work with that kid. He showed you he was dynamic with the ball in his hands. He had good route running skills. He could punt return. And he couldn't catch the ball his freshman year. He's an 18-year-old kid, and it's like, why don't you hit the portal? Head back home. And you see this kid on Wednesday nights. One Wednesday night he had 3 touchdowns. Had one off a run, one off a punt return, one off. It had 300 yards total. So it drives me crazy. Hold on. Let me settle down here before we go 2 hours. I'll drink.
Curtis getting fired up here.
It'll drive you crazy, man.
It will, man. It will. But we get the feel of Pride. Awesome. Now, it's not official, but it's unofficial. Tyler Bowen's going to be joining us as the offensive coordinator. Not sure if it's going to be a co-type role or what. But up at Penn State just a couple years ago, he was the co-OC. He was the tight ends coach for, some really good tight ends. Pat Fairmouth has been on my fantasy team this year, helping me out here and there. But what's the feeling out of Happy Valley with Bowen as a coach and a recruiter?
Well, he was a great recruiter, no doubt about that. I mean, he left. Look at the name Joe Moorhead. I know we talked about it on the pre-show, but Joe Moorhead, Mississippi State, Oregon. Now he's, I believe did he take Akron? Is that who he took?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's down there now, but that's who Tyler was learning from was Joe Moorhead, and then they actually left and he actually went to Fordham, where Moorhead was coaching before he came to Penn State. So he's very good offensively. He's a fantastic recruiter. He's at the Jacksonville Jaguars right now, so he must be pretty good for Urban to hire him to an NFL staff. So, but he took that. I guess him and Brent Coach Pry have a good relationship, I guess, for him to bring him on as the OC down there with you guys, hopefully. And I personally think he'll do a great job. He's a good man also, but he's also a really, really good recruiter. So I'm going to tell you, you guys, the future is very bright down there in Blacksburg.
Yeah, I wanted to ask this. I know, he was co-OC in 2019. Well, yeah, 2019. I guess he called the bowl game that year, right? When Ricky Ronnie went to
Ricky
ODU.
Ronnie went to Old Dominion.
Yeah, and then I guess 2020. Was there a reason that he decided to take the job other than Urban came calling, or like what was the whispers out there in State College?
Well, he had probably been passed over twice now for that offensive coordinator because, again, we've had 4 in 4 years up here. So he was the replacement for Ronnie, and then they went out and they picked up the guy from Minnesota who really didn't work out well. But I think I don't know for a fact. I don't know anything. I never heard any rumor of it. But, he probably felt like he was passed over, and then he needed to get some more experience out there, and he went down to Jacksonville and worked with Urban. Who would have thought that we're in this position with Urban Meyer that, when he took that job last year?
Yeah, I thought it wasn't going to be good for him long term. I didn't think it would be this much of a clown show that he's fired mid-season, like everything with the girls at the bar, stuff in the locker room. I mean,
shortest tenure ever.
That's wild.
Petrino did.
Think about Bobby Petrino had more wins in the NFL than him.
He did, and he lasted longer. It's impressive.
That's ridiculous to think about.
That's wild.
Absolutely.
Hey, man, that's for another show because, he has a $50 million contract that they said they're not going to pay. So get ready for those fireworks down there because
that's going to be a lot of fun.
They're going to counter sue, and it's going to be ugly. Everything's going to come out.
It is. If
he wants that money, they're going to say, well, you did this, and you did this, and you did this. That's in the court of law, so you can't lie. It's going to be interesting.
Stuff's about to get official. They're going to put it on the record.
Absolutely.
Hey, but you know what? I'll say for you guys up there, I'll give Franklin credit. At least he is willing to move on from OCs if it's not working. And I'm hoping Brent's that type of guy too. Like, as much as we're excited about Tyler, if he's struggling, I hope he takes James's thing of, okay, we need to move on. Because unfortunately for us as Virginia Tech fans, for really the last 15 plus years, that's always been our issue. You talked about having struggles on offense. That was the mid-2000s for us. Bud's defense giving up 8-9 points a game and losing multiple games a year because they hold the team to 10 or to 13 and we can't get to 14. So I'm hoping Pry takes that from obviously one of his, I wouldn't say buddy, one of his mentors in James that says you got to move on from guys when they aren't being successful. And, that's my feeling on that just because we've had to deal with it so long.
Yeah, the big thing that we always had is that we had some decent offenses, but it was always like it was in spite of the talent. Like we had really good talent at skill positions and quarterback and occasionally an offensive line, but we just the offense as a whole just could not get it going consistently. I mean, we had several, really good running backs, guys that played in the NFL, wide receivers that played in the NFL, offensive linemen played in the NFL, all on the same team and just averaging 20 points, 25 points a game. Like you can't win like that in the ACC.
No.
Yeah, the days of the Joe Paterno and Frank Beamer loyalty to your guys and keeping the same staff for 25, 30 years, we're never going to see them again, boys. Those days are over, and it's good and bad. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, you know, there is too much turnover in football, but like we just said, like I said about that signing day stuff, that the days of football that we knew and we loved and we played, they're long gone. So we got to figure it out. And again, you guys got a guy who understands the transfer portal, understands recruiting, understands kids nowadays. He knows what they want. he knows it's no longer going to play in Blacksburg or Virginia Tech because you want to play for Virginia Tech. It's just Virginia Tech is going to be my best opportunity to get me to the NFL. And that's the way these kids think right now. It could be a seven-string offensive guard who thinks he has NFL aspirations. And, it's crazy, but this is the way these kids are nowadays. And I think all the coaches nowadays, they understand that. And the faster the people will learn that, the quicker your turnaround will be.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think, if you're thinking about it from the same mindset that folks were approaching it in the 2000s and in the 90s, I mean, it seemed like 2010 was kind of the big shift when things kind of went from one mindset to the other, and then it's only gotten added on to with the transfer portal, and then again with NIL this last year. And me and Curtis always talk like NIL could be something that is an asset, but because the NCAA just drug their feet and then just said, all right, you guys figure it out. And now we're just trying to, like, it's such a clown show right now. Everybody trying to figure out, all right, well, how we're going to navigate in this kind of new.
Monitoring it.
Yeah,
no,
it's wild.
The problem is you have schools out there who are going and saying, I'm going to give you a $5 million deal. What kid is going to say no to that? Nobody.
And then the sad part will be when that kid is terrible his freshman year, they're going to be like, you don't have a deal anymore, son.
Oh, look at your boy in Oklahoma. What the hell was the quarterback?
Rattler. Oh, yeah.
Spencer Rattler. He made how much? $6-7 million? You think those people are happy about their return of investment? He played 4 games and got cut.
Yep.
That's crazy. And then the kid from Texas going to Ohio State after he skipped his senior year to go to Ohio State, made $3 million and then didn't even play a snap.
Yeah.
He didn't throw a pass. Collects that money and goes back down to Texas now.
That was a finesse move, man. That was a big time fleece.
I have my own radio show, so I have my own opinions of it, and it's just not good. It's not good at all. I understand the point of it. Listen, everybody, got exploited when you were in college. I get it. It's what happens, and the school makes money off of you, and you get nothing. I get it. Just what about giving every 85 scholarship kid $5,000 a month and just add that into the scholarship money, and then you don't have anybody going out there, because this is what's going to happen. You're going to have the left tackle who is going after an NIC money, but the star quarterback and running back get that money. You think that guy is going to be happy about that, and you think that's going to be okay in the locker room? So the big boys up front aren't going to get anything. It's going to be your running backs, your quarterbacks, and your star linebackers. That's just the nature of the game. So the big boys up front are going to be pissed. We're still going to be hungry. We're still not going to be making any kind of money. And there's going to be all kinds of issues in the locker room. It's just bad. I mean, just bad. Wait until, hey, coach, I can't play this week. I have an autograph show. I got to miss practice tomorrow night. I got to go see my tax account. I got to go see this person because I have a tax burden right now. It's just insane, man.
See, Keith is on the same mindset I am, because I told Brian before, my joke is this: what happens when the kid forgets to pay his taxes and he's an Ohio State quarterback? He's coming to Happy Valley to play guys. Oh no, he's getting arrested because he didn't pay his taxes last year. Oopsie.
Absolutely.
Let's close out with this, because again, Keith, we're going to have you back sometime in the near future, because we just went 45 minutes on this, and there's a plethora of issues we'd love to talk about with you. But let me ask this: gut feel, Brent Pry, Virginia Tech, does he get us back where we expect to be, competing for ACC titles, winning 9, 10, 11 games a year?
Absolutely. Hell, if Pitt can do it, he can do it, man.
I like that mindset.
No doubt.
I like that.
He's a winner, dude. He's gonna fight, scratch, and claw to get there. He don't like losing, and in the recruiting battles and in the on-field stuff, you got a winner there. He's going to go out and he's going to compete. He's going to have his kids compete and playing hard. That's all you can ask for a coach.
I love the sound of that. I think ever since the announcement's been made, it's just kind of been a different switch here in Richmond, where we are in Blacksburg. There's a completely different feeling around the program, and some of it has to do with some of the ineptitude of the previous staff, and some of it has to do with just the fact that what Coach Pry is bringing to the table is the goods, and I think that's what we've been missing.
Yeah, but he's gonna go out there and he's gonna get your fan base all riled up. That's what you got to do. You got to get the fan base behind you. And Virginia Tech. I lived down there in Richmond in that area for 4 or 5 years. I know who they like. You can be all the UVA fans you want, but you can tell who they are. But you know who the Virginia Tech fans are, and there's a lot more of them out there. And I have always said that the Virginia Tech and Penn State guys are very, very similar in our. One is because a lot of people go to Tech grad school from Penn State, and a lot of people go to Penn State's grad school from Virginia Tech because of the ag buildings and the ag sciences and all that stuff. So there's a lot of turnover, a lot of Virginia Tech and Penn State marriages too. So I've always, liked that and about you guys, and there's you're going to have a bunch of people up here who are going to root for Pride, root for you guys. So take Clemson down. F Pitt, do it, baby. You got it. Get it back to the way it was.
There we go. While we got you on here, I know we're going to talk about the Pinstripe Bowl a little bit here after our break, but I know we talked off air. You said that you had a experience there a couple years back. What can we expect from the Pinstripe Bowl for the Hokies?
Dude, I'm telling you, I had never gone. I grew up in the Philadelphia area, so I really never had to leave that area. I went to New York City maybe once or twice in my life before being an adult. So, but I had never been to New York City for holiday season with the Rockefeller tree, with the ice skating rink, NBC Studios, and you could just feel there's an aura up there about it being the holidays, and it was just such a cool thing. Just a really, really cool thing to experience. A ton of restaurants. I don't have to talk about the nightlife or the restaurants, but the game was really cool because you're in the Bronx, and you're getting off the subway, and there's the Cathedral of Baseball right there. Just the whole landscape of it, and just seeing how it's set up. It's a really cool thing. And I wish I remember the pregame bar I was at because it was a hell of a time, and the postgame bar was even better. So.
There we go.
If you got an opportunity to go up there, get up there and bring the family and bring the kids. And I know it's a little bit riskier right now than it was 5 years ago to go to New York City with the police issues and stuff like that. But it was really worth it. I really, really enjoyed it. To the point where I'm as mad and pissed off I was about Penn State season. I would have gone if Penn State had gone to the Pinstripe Bowl. I would have definitely driven up.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Unfortunately, neither of us can make it up there this year, but I know there's a lot of folks that are listening, folks that follow us on Twitter that are heading up there. So hopefully they'll have a good time up that way. But he's preparing for a wedding, so that's completely different right now. But yeah, so a couple minutes. But before we let you go, Keith, appreciate you jumping on. It's been great talking with you again. Chopping a little bit of ball, chopping it up about Coach Pry and back to Virginia Tech. So thank you for joining us, and I really appreciate it.
You got it, man. I enjoyed it too. Good luck to you guys this year, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you guys again.
Oh, definitely. We will definitely be having you back on to talk a lot of these bigger issues in college football, man, because
it's only going to get worse, brother. You're going to be calling me next week and saying, "Did you see this?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I saw it."
Exactly.
I'm actually trying to do some stuff to help our guys out. I go back to the Virginia Tech and Penn State. I know we're going wrong here, but we're not in the big metropolitan towns, man. We don't have that stability. So a school like Virginia Tech and a school like Penn State are behind the eight ball. We are really, really, really we can't compete. Just believe that we can't compete with Pitt when it comes to NIL deals because they're in a city. They have so many more opportunities, and that's going to catch up to us in the long run if we don't get ahead of it. So. Good luck with it, boys. You're going to need it, and so will we. Well, big man froze up there. I'll talk to you, man.
He froze up. All right, Keith. We appreciate it, man.
Hey, man. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year's.
Same to you, man.
You got it, brother. Take care.
Yes, sir. Brian's having some technical issues here, guys. So, what we've got the rest.
As we take a quick break, we'd like to tell you about getting your free website report from our digital partner, Grassroots Digital Marketing Studio. They'll tell you how your website ranks on Google, on-site SEO, and social media. No commitment to buy anything. You can get your free report by visiting grassrootsdigitalstudio.com/free-website-report. Now back to the episode.
You there, man?
So my internet's out, guys. That was fun.
Well, there was a brief message from our digital partners. Again, we thank Keith for having. And right before I was interrupted by the commercial, we've got a lot to unload now. We've been talking with Keith 50 minutes about Tyler Bowen, about Coach Pry's experiences, and some other things. And trust me, we'll have Keith back on to discuss a bunch of other things in the near future. But Brian, let's talk about some things Hokie-wise. Let's talk about signing day last week. And, how was your feeling overall? Did you like how we ended up? Currently ranked 30th in the class.
You know what? I liked it overall. Obviously, I would have liked for a couple of those late flips from some of the tour high-profile players, and Ramon Brown and Alex Orji. I wish we could have held on to those guys. But closed out the class good, flipped a couple UVA commits late. Pulled in a couple other guys like Hunter McLean late. Yep. I think that kind of really sealed a really good class, and overall the best class that we've had since kind of the early Fuente classes there. So I'm looking forward to see what these guys can do on the field, especially I know we talked about it earlier with Keith, but we got 12 of those guys enrolling early. And that's going to be big, especially with the holes we have in the roster from just bad roster management overall, and then all the opt-outs we've been dealing with.
Yep. And you talk about the two UVA commits. Brody Meadows was one. We had talked about Brody back in the spring when we were looking at some of the players in the state of Virginia. But the other guy that was flipped and then committed and signed on Friday, Xavion Bradshaw, Ahmad Bradshaw's son, out of Graham, same high school as Meadows, 3-star, 6 foot 185, listed as an athlete. I think they listed him as receiver. If you go back and look.
He's going to be a slot receiver, yeah. He's a slot receiver, yeah.
In a solid, list of, offers and interest, Cincinnati, App State, saw some interest from West Virginia, some interest from Notre Dame. So, obviously, there was something there. And flipping them was a big thing. And it's like the focus on the state, right? Even though we lost a couple guys in state, we gained a couple more guys. And I tell you what, both Brody and his thing, you could see they were waiting on that offer, right?
I think Brody was really hurt that he didn't get a offer from the Hokies earlier when Fuente was around. Getting that offer once Pry took over, really again emphasizing talent in your backyard. Bluefield, Virginia is definitely in the Blacksburg backyard. So taking advantage of that, I think, was big for us. And it definitely I think it sends a good message to the talent in the state, right?
Yeah.
So whether or not either of these players end up having significant careers for the Hokies, it sends a message out the gate that we are prioritizing talent in our backyard, talent in our state, talent in our footprint.
Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna stop here for 1 second. We're watching the Tech Duke game as we record. Techco had the halftime lead, now down 5 with 10 minutes to play after coming off, obviously, their most impressive game last Friday against St. Bonaventure. St. Bonaventure's a good A-10 team. We can attest to that watching them play BCU, and they took them behind the woodshed. And right now, they're keeping up with a impressive Duke team.
Yeah, and I think I think this is a little bit of maybe a turn of the corner for the team, even if they aren't able to hold on and win this one. The game against St. Bonaventure was big, I think, for confidence, right? I think we went through a string where we lost a couple that we shouldn't have, lost a couple other ones that we thought we could win and we kind of let get away. And the St. Bonaventure win was big, and I think the Bonnies didn't have their best game. Obviously, that wasn't their best game, but at the same time, some of that was some of that was dictated by what the Hokies were doing. So I'm hoping that they're able to close this out, get a win against a really probably the best opponent in the conference that they'll see all year, and kind of keep it moving and get some momentum.
Well, we say that, and as we get done with our interview on Keith, and I'm paying more attention, we're losing, so I might have to turn it off. We're down 10 now. Let's go to this, Brian. Obviously, some big news on the coaching front. Let's start with one more guy retained, and that is Pearson Prelude. Going to go from defensive player development to the safeties. Pearson, an originator of DBU, was here 95 to 1998, drafted and then played 12 years, including a Super Bowl ring. We're not going to talk about the Super Bowl ring yet. How are you on this hire, Brian?
I actually like it. Now, I will say this: it is not sexy.
Oh no,
it's not. It's not sexy to promote your director of player development for defense to your coach. We saw it happen with him a couple years back. But where I think this is different is Pearson's overall pedigree in the NFL, time that he spent with JC on the road this year. And then the last thing is that opportunities were available to him before now, and he passed on prioritizing spending time with his family, being able to be in a local area most of his time, not have to be on the road recruiting. I think as his kids are getting older, opportunities still presenting themselves, time to jump in and coach for your alma mater at a position that you played, that you are highly knowledgeable in, and for a new staff where there's as much about the program as there's been in a while.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a legend here at Tech, and I think him being here for a few years, it probably helps with the transition a little bit more, because you've got JC. JC's only been on the staff 1 year. A lot of these guys who are going to be around next year will probably have known Pearson from Jump Street in some way, shape, or form. And again, no knock on Ham. Ham played safety 1 year. He was good, and he played a couple years, and he's kind of coached the defensive side. This has literally been Pearson's position his whole life. Whole life. And now the question is, can he recruit? Can he coach, though? The guy can play. There was never any question about that, but can he coach? And I think we'll find out pretty quick, because he's got a couple talented guys with them who had good seasons, who were kind of up and down. If we see more steady play, we'll know, hey, maybe he's the right guy. Now, with that being said, Brian, if he's going to safeties, the cheetah Derek Jones is coaching corners. That means Ryan Smith is leaving us, unfortunately. Smitty's heading up to Northwestern.
I think, we talked before all this started to go down. Smitty was the other one on this staff that we were hoping got retained. We were hoping moved to safeties to coach there. So there's obviously some disappointment there, and I think that's probably where some of the unsexiness lies as well, is that we thought someone that was already on the staff was going to slide into that spot. But he's moving on, and I think some of that is probably good for him, just because overlapping regimes, when you don't have a full-on relationship with the guy coming in, that can be a little dicey. Obviously, JC, longer relationship with Coach Pride than the kind of short crossing of paths with Ryan Smith there. So, I wish him nothing but the best, especially since he's not in the ACC. So, and maybe this is one thing where he goes, gets some more experience, and we'll see him again in a few years.
That might be the case. He's definitely going to work for a hell of a head coach in Pat Fitzgerald, who seems like every other year, if he's not winning 3 games, he's winning 9 or 10 at Northwestern and taking Ohio State to the brink in a championship game. All right, so got those coaches. We already talked about Tyler Bowen. It's not official, but everything points that he's going to be the OC and the tight ends coach. But since the last time we talked, just me and Brian. Loved last week with Tally and them, but we've had 3 additional coaches. I want to start with Stu Holt here, Brian. Stu Holt, going to be the special teams and the running backs coach. And man, does he have the background, especially in special teams and running backs. You know, his special teams seem like he's similar to Shy Best. He's an A special teams guy. Some of his receiving teams return teams have ranked up in the top 5, which is really impressive. And somebody said, they thought he was going to be tight ends coach. And I'm sitting here like, look at what he did at App State. Get that man in the running back room, and that's where they're going to put him. And obviously, he crossed paths with Coach Pry back in the late 1990s down at Western Carolina, where he was a GA while Pry was a DC. I like this. I mean, it's still someone from the ACC, and there is no fall off now with special teams coaching, and can we say it's probably an upgrade at the running back room?
Yeah, definitely an upgrade at the running back room. At worst, an even swap there on the special teams unit could be a step up there as well. I like this hire overall. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in the running back room for certain, because that's probably one area where we were dependent upon talent out the gate in order to have a good unit. We were thankfully able the last couple of years to bring in some transfers that buoyed that up. But we're going to see what some of the young guys have this year, and I'm hoping that Holt's going to guide them along the way and get them playing to their best ability. And maybe we'll finally see Marco Lee get some carries.
Well, with potentially what we're going to be doing in the offensive game, which I know you're going to be able to look a little bit more at as week next month, maybe Marco Lee does get some carries. Stu Holt, Broyles Award finalist in the past, as is the next guy. Brad Glenn joins the staff as the quarterback coach and passing game coordinator. Had been down at Georgia State since 2019. Was at Western Carolina before that for about 6 years. And at first I was not overwhelmed by this hire. I'll be straight up with you, Brian. I wasn't. But I'm going to give him a shout out. Shout out JJ Singleton out there. We had some DMs with JJ, and JJ was like, listen, JJ knew him from his time at Western Carolina, and he actually had a class, and he said, this guy knows his football. And as I said already, he was a Broyles Award finalist before. So I'm still sort of gung-ho on this. It's a Brad. He's coaching quarterbacks. He's got a goatee. But
you've been burned. You've been burned before.
Yeah, we've been burned before. What are you seeing with him, Brian?
I think the big thing is that, I think he's going to be a good complement to the guy we think is going to be the offensive coordinator, which, it sounds like for all intents and purposes is our offensive coordinator, and Tyler Bowen. I think he's going to be a good complement there. Tyler's worked with tight ends. He's worked with offensive line. We got a quarterback guru. We got someone that knows how to generate points from the passing game. Brad Glenn can definitely do that. We've seen it with the Georgia State offenses. We've seen it with the Western Carolina offenses.
And App State.
And App State, absolutely.
Coach Edwards.
Yes.
So
he knows how to generate points in the passing game. He knows how to get points from athletic quarterbacks that can run the football. He doesn't get them murdered though, so that's a benefit as well. So I think this is overall a good hire. Again, much like the Prelo hire, it's not necessarily sexy, but I think it's good and strategic.
All right. Last one, this just dropped today. The White Galt IV is going to be the director of strength and conditioning for the football program. Obviously, when we talked about Keith just a few minutes ago, his dad has been with James Franklin for over 10 years. You see Penn State. A lot of times they're getting out physical. Do you see what he did with Saquon Barkley? I don't know as much. He's coming from ODU. He had the stint at Penn State. He had a stint at South Carolina. He's a young guy. I mean, let me pull it up here real quick. He is like, let me see. He is 2009. So what, 34, 35?
He's a little bit younger than us, yeah.
Yeah,
A little bit
he's
younger than us.
than us, and hopefully the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, right?
That's the big hope, and obviously, I mean, some of the things that they're doing at Penn State, that's definitely going to have rubbed off on him. Between the emphasis on strength and also the analytic approach to the strength system, I think that's something that we haven't really seen. I don't think we're going to have any skinny legs out there anymore. No more beach body situation out there. This is going to be strong and fast. And I think if you're training towards that, then you got the right mindset.
So there are your hires. There's still 2 positions left to hire. That is offensive line coach. There's a lot of smoke around that. Maybe in the next few days that gets announced. And then there's been absolutely no smoke around the wide receiver coach. So
yeah, there's been nothing louder than a whisper on the wide receiver front. There's full on ship horns for the offensive line coach. So
you absolutely correct.
Or well lit noses,
So think about it, folks. Let's go here, Brian. 3 guys additionally have announced for the draft: John Parker Romo, the kicker; John Tenuta, Raheem Blackshear. Any of these 3 shock you?
Probably Tenuta the most, to be honest with you, because I think he still has tape that he could put out there to improve his stock. I think other than some early season snafus, John Parker Romo had as good of a season as I could have expected from him. Short of missing two chip shots in the first 3 weeks of the season, I don't really have that much negative to say about him throughout the year.
Quit kicking the ball out of bounds on kickoffs.
Couple of those were rough, but
really rough.
But Blackshear, I've praised Blackshear on this program enough times where you guys know what I think about his ability, and that's an ability that translates probably even better to the NFL than it does to the college game. So just the versatility he has to catch the ball. He's gotten a lot better at running between the tackles. I think he brings a lot to the table, and I think just the shelf life of a running back, if your stock's high, go ahead and cash in the chips.
Well, he's probably got his degree by now. Obviously, some of the games he had this year, he really flashed. He's playing in the bowl, right?
Yes.
He's not opted out. So one more chance to flash one more time for him. Romo, the same way, probably got his degree. He's a kicker. And believe it or not, I think right now, because of what's going on with shy-best kickers, they're getting chances in the NFL. He showed he has the leg to kick from 50-plus pretty accurately. So go for it. But I'm with you. Tenuta probably does need another year of seasoning. But I think here's why he's probably going. And this is just my thought. He's got the physical makeup of a tackle, either side of the ball.
Yep.
Perfect physical makeup. He's 6'7.5". He's 305 pounds. Got pretty long arms. Doesn't have terrible feet. Pretty strong guy. But for him, he's been in the Fuente corn system his whole career. To ask to say, let me flip it to go to a brand new system and learn everything new, I might regress. And if I regress, my chances are gone. At least now my tape looks solid. I have the frame. Somebody might take a risk with me.
You know who didn't do that though? And I know it's a different situation, but do you know who didn't do that?
Who's that?
Wyatt Teller.
It's true.
I know the situations are different. We're not dealing with a super senior situation. We're not dealing with any of that, the COVID-related side effects. But sometimes next year's seasoning improves your stock. And unfortunately for Wyatt, there were, some things where he and Fuente rubbed heads to kind of start things off that hurt that comeback run a little bit. So,
it did. But hey, he's taken everything since then and ran with it. Pro Bowl this year, big contract.
Oh yeah. and having a great year this year. So I mean, he's earning the paycheck, and I'm looking forward to watching him some more this year.
One of the only NFL linemen with highlight tape reels. He loves to destroy people. It's awesome to see that. All right, Brian, let's flip it over to the portal. Obviously, you mentioned it. Interview with Keith. Braxton Burmeister has hit the portal. Braxton was trying to play in the bowl game, but it's one of those. It's a liability issue. You can't be in the portal and still play. I don't think this is a shock to anyone, but now we have Connor Blumrick, Taj, and a walk-on.
Yep.
I've got our rundown sheet here. I am hoping the next time we talk in January, because we are going to take a couple weeks off, guys. There's some ends in that category that we can talk about because we need some.
Yeah, we definitely need an end, especially at the quarterback position, just because that's one position that, if you're a quality transfer, teams are going to lock you up pretty quick. We've already seen a handful that have been locked up. Looks like probably one more is coming through the pike pretty soon at Pitt.
Eat it on Slovis.
Yep.
But did anybody tell Slovis that Whipple went to Nebraska?
The whispers are that Whipple was a figurehead, but I don't think that's the case. So we'll see.
Whipple's always been a solid offensive coach, so I don't think that's the case. We'll find out quickly. But does BB land anywhere, or is he?
He lands somewhere. I don't know if he lands another Power 5 gig. I just think between his proneness to injury and I think just the limited arm ability, it's going to limit his options at the Power 5 level. That's on tape now. At Oregon, he was very young. There was still some ceiling to reach for at that point.
Yep.
I think at this point we've seen where that ceiling is. And I think that's probably going to limit some of his opportunities. I think he could get a look at either G5 or FCS for sure, but I don't see another Power 5 spot for him.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's unfortunate for him because I think essentially I'll just say this: I think our coaching staff really messed him up. They took away some of the best things he did, and then obviously the stories about the one read. That can mess up a guy's head. So I hope he lands on his feet wherever he decides to go.
No doubt. It's definitely unfortunate. I'm going to commend. I mean, I was critical of his ability right now, but I will commend him for putting everything out there when he was playing. When he was on the field, he was 100% on the field. He wasn't taking plays off. He wasn't shortchanging the fans. He wasn't shortchanging his teammates. He was laying it all out there. So I will give him credit for that absolutely 100%.
Yep. All right, Brian, let's keep moving. Still more. We kind of talked about this last week, but the game of headset is kind of slowly coming to an end for the Power 5 schools. And, just a couple, 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, Tony Elliott goes to UVA. Good for them. I think with the way it was looking, I thought they were going to have to scrape the bottom of the barrel for something.
They were getting into spooky hours there for a little bit because it looked like for a second that maybe the original deal they had with Elliott had fallen through and they were going to have to pivot. And probably the best pivot they could have done at that point was maybe talk to Gaddis, but in my opinion, Gaddis would have been a step up from where you were with Elliott in terms of, attractiveness for the job. But yeah, I think they probably did the best case scenario considering where Bronco left them holding the bag at the end of the season. At the same time, I think we probably came out better in terms of overall fit, culture fit, and potential to kind of hit the ground running, especially because of how they had to close out the class with really having zero time to kind of keep things together after Elliott was brought on.
Yep. And I think, too, Tony, it's Furman and Clemson. We already went through, Brent Pry. Virginia Tech, Western Carolina, ULL, Georgia Southern, Vanderbilt. It's going to be interesting to see him staff put together. 2 more hires. I don't think this one shocked me. Dan Lanning going out to Oregon. We talked about Lanning. Lanning's been all over the place. He's going to a place where he's going to get high-end recruits. He's going to a conference that's not really known for strong defenses, with the exception of like Utah. I mean, 37 years old.
Formerly USC.
Formerly USC, probably less so with Lincoln going there. But
Yep.
I think they made a fine hire. They made literally the best, probably young defensive coordinator they could.
Yeah, I think if you were going to defensive hire, they probably did as best as they could there. I know they were looking at a couple other options as they were putting stuff together. I guess they rumored to have talked to Chip at one point. I don't know how much actual truth there is to those rumors, but they land on Dan Lanning, which I think, if you're going defensive coach, probably the best that they could have grabbed in those circumstances. And I'll go ahead and hit the next one. Duke with hiring Mike Elko. That's probably the best case scenario they could have swung.
Holy, they absolutely nailed it. Guy that was on our list. I'm just kind of, I mean, maybe it's one of those stability things, right? Maybe that's why Elliott went to UVA. They both know they are getting 5 to 7 years. They know that. Kind of like Brent probably knows he's probably getting 6 years.
Yep.
Like, you go to a program where you can actually try to build. It's better than going somewhere. You know, I hate to say this. Lanning going to Oregon, he starts sucking, they'll fire you. Look what they did to Helfrich. Helfrich took him to a national title game. 2 years later, they fired him. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what Elko can do there. He had good defenses at Wake Forest, not great. Notre Dame and Texas A&M, he had elite defenses. So, I mean,
he has shown the ability to take moderate talent and get a good amount out of them, even if they're not elite. And I think for Duke, if you can get above average defenses, you got a little bit of a shot. The question is going to be is the thing with Cut is that Cut early in his time at Duke was able to recruit defense pretty well, and because of his offenses, they were able to string a few things together there. Is he going to have enough contacts to get the offensive staff in there that's going to be able to complement, those probably punching above their belt defenses?
Absolutely. All right, folks. So we're going to turn next. We're going to look at the Pinstripe Bowl the best we can. Right now, Maryland has no opt-outs. Nothing's broken COVID protocols-wise that they're losing players or coaches. So we're going to jump in right to the offensive side of the ball, and we're going to talk about, I hope I pronounce it right, Tulua Tagovailoa, obviously Tua's little brother, the quarterback, 4-star, top 10 quarterback when he came out, top 200 player. Initially went to Alabama, then transferred when Mike Loxley got the job at Maryland. This season so far, 68% completion, over 3,500 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 11 picks. So obviously had a good season. But what's the tape saying about him, Brian? Did he just carve up the bad guys and play terrible against the good guys?
No, he actually did pretty well overall.
Okay.
Good accuracy, especially when he was throwing passes in the short game. He doesn't take a ton of shots downfield. When they do, it's usually off some sort of play action. They usually like to have a max protect in there, or at least an extra blocker when they take some of those shots downfield. He will be used in the running game as well. He's got really good athleticism. Particularly, there was a play in one of the films I watched where he was able to run they ran a pin and pull quarterback sweep, and he got to the edge, went up the sideline for a touchdown, about 58 yards. So he has the ability to break a big play in the running game. That's not what his primary game is, though. He is looking to throw the ball, sling the ball around, get the ball out of his hands quick. And he's also used some in the misdirection game on the reads and things like that. But the primary thing we need to look at is that short passing game and making sure we get him out of rhythm.
Yeah, and it seems like that based on the data I'm seeing, they are a pass-first team, not a run-first team. Let's hope that maybe we get some snowfall in New York, the wind blows a little bit hard, and he can't throw it to a guy like Raheem Jarrett, his top wide receiver, top 30 player, top player in DC, top 5 wideout, 5-star. Played at St. John's. We know our deal with St. John's. We're not allowed to go in there anymore, or under the old regime. Hopefully, Brent can open up those doors, like he kept the 2 St. Francis guys this year. But man, this guy's has torn it up this year. 56 receptions, 769 yards, 13.7 per catch, 5 touchdowns. What are we seeing out of Raheem Jarrett? Because clearly he is Tagovailoa's favorite target.
Yeah, and ironically, he's got good yards per catch, but he's really more of a stick mover that just has really good run after the catch. He's not running a ton of deep routes consistently. It's a lot of slants and comebacks. He will break a kind of deep crosser. That's really where he kind of gets guys beat deep, is those some deep crossers. That's where he can break off some of the big plays down the field, but it's mostly stick mover routes. Then he's just good with the ball in his hands after the catch.
That's good to hear, because the other guys on the team, only one other guy has more than 500 yards, and that's Dante Demas. So, I think it's one of those things. I think what Ham's got to do is look to focus him. Don't let him beat you.
Yeah.
Don't let him beat you, or the next guy we're about to talk about, because he is really their only running back threat, and that's Tayon Fleet Davis, 3-star out of Oxon, Maryland. So far this season, 664 yards on the ground, only 120 carries, so over 5.5 a carry with 8 rushing touchdowns. But man, do they use him in the passing game. Third on the team in receptions with 32 at over 300 yards, averaging right about 9.5. What's the tape telling you about this guy's game?
Yeah, he shows really good burst, even though he has limited carries in the running game. He gets really good, consistent yardage despite those limited carries. And he has the ability to bust a big play in the running game, but they really use the running game to complement the passing game, to complement what they like to do with play action. He's primarily used just swing it out of the backfield, a check down for Tagovailoa. He's primarily that type of player for them. He will occasionally run kind of a wheel or things where you're getting the ball to him further down the field. But this is really a guy that catches the ball in space and can make guys miss and get upfield for some big yardage.
All right, good deal. All right, man. Give me some info on the offensive line for this year.
They are very average in their run game. They're better in pass pro, but they're not great. They do have a lot of play action plays, both RPOs and true play action. They're not the best at blitz pickup, but when they run that run action, a lot of it's counter action. So you got guys pulling across the formation, blocking guys like we've seen, to some success and some utter failure this year on our end with those counter play actions. Not the best offensive line overall, probably the weakest overall unit of the offense, but they're good enough in pass pro where they're able to do a lot of things in the passing game as long as the quarterback doesn't hold the ball too long.
Yeah, you talk about their running game. I mean, their running game averages under 4. That's bad. They're 93rd in the country in over 130 a game, but when you're averaging under 4, that's where you have to get scared, because that says, well, if you run the ball 3 times, there is a mathematical chance you will not get a first down, right?
Yep,
You will
exactly.
mathematically not get a first down. And, they're good in pass pro, but they're not like elite. And, and I say that they're giving up roughly over 2 sacks a game, ranking somewhere in the 80s. So not like bottom of the barrel like they kind of are with the run game, but definitely there's going to be some opportunities there to take advantage of them. But before we look at how to take advantage of them, let's look at the defense, Brian. And I want to start. I'm trying to figure out how the hell Maryland are getting these recruits. Nick Cross, the safety, 4-star, top 50 player, out of DeMatha. I mean, this guy so far this year, Brian, 63 tackles, couple sacks, 3 interceptions out of a safety position, a forced fumble, had some pass deflections. I mean, thinking about him, 6'2", 205. Hell, he's a class of let's see what it is here. He's a class of 19. I mean, he could legitimately like lead. And I don't know if the tape's saying that, but the stats say that.
I mean, he has that potential. He plays that safety position. He's really good, especially in zone coverage. He's rangy. He will be asked to man up on occasion. Sometimes they'll actually put him on the outside receiver man up. He has some lapses in his run fits, and he's probably only an average tackler, which might be the things that potentially limit him being a guy that can jump right now. He's still got a little bit of things to clean up in his game, but just his athleticism and his ability, I mean, it's off the charts. It definitely jumps off the tape. And that defense, they run that 3-4 base. They'll switch into a 2-5 from time to time, so it gives him some opportunities to kind of move around and do some different things on that defense.
Yeah, looking up here, if you're not watching, Hokies down 11 late, so it looks like this is going to be a loss to Duke. Duke takes a 13-0 run early second half to really flip this game over. And Brian, you talked about right there about running a 3-4, running a 2-5. Obviously, they're dependent on linebackers. And Ruben, I hope I pronounced this right, Hippolyto the second, definitely another really good recruit. Class of 2020, 4-star out of Hollywood, Florida. 6'2", 225. What's the tape saying with him?
Yeah, this is a guy that they're going to be bringing on a lot of their blitzes. He's their primary blitzer from the inside linebacker position. They'll send him on run blitzes and in passing situations. He does a really good job of disrupting the line of scrimmage and then getting at the quarterback, making the quarterback get rid of the ball, occasionally getting in there for a sack there. He's also a good tackler, above average run stopper for this unit. And he primarily covers the running back when they go into man coverage situations. So you'll see him kind of shadow the running back out of the backfield on passing downs if they're in man coverage.
Yeah. And so far this year, 50 tackles, couple for loss. So really more of a tackler than what you're seeing, not a sack master by any means. And, forced fumble, couple pass deflections. So he seems like that guy. If you get to him, he's going to take you down. He's not going to get you in the backfield. He's not going to be sacking the quarterback. He's not going to be picking the balls off. So, good player, not great. But
and he's still young. I mean, this is really his second full year on campus. So he's got some growth there. But yeah, he's a little rough around the edges in some areas. But like I said, they primarily use him to blitz, to really disrupt the line of scrimmage. He doesn't always get home in terms of making the play, but a lot of times that's not the goal of sending the blitz.
It absolutely isn't. So let's go to one last player here. Sam Ikana Wanua, number 97. Sam, obviously outside linebacker, a JUCO transfer from here, from up in Lowell, Massachusetts. And so far this year, having a really solid season for them for being a JUCO transfer. 46 tackles, 4 sacks, 2.5 additional tackles for loss. Is he their best edge presence, Brian, or is there somebody better than him out there?
He's their best balanced edge presence for sure. He is a big dude.
Oh, yeah. 6'3", like 275, isn't he?
280, yeah. 6'3", 280. Big dude coming off the edge. Usually don't see that type of size on guys that aren't already in the NFL. And sometimes you don't see it then. And he's got good athleticism for 280. He can be neutralized when you run away from him, though, because he doesn't have that elite edge speed that you see with some guys in the 3-4s. So you can neutralize him a little bit by running away from him. And he's not an elite pass rusher, but he does a good job with his bull rush. Obviously, given the size, you probably expect that. So look for him to be the guy that's going to apply some pressure on those passing downs. Again, he's not elite at that, but he's so balanced at both the run and the pass, and so good with that, using his size, that he's going to be a load to handle, especially with being down at least one offensive lineman on the interior there.
All right, so there you have it. Some names to look for next Wednesday when we play the Maryland Terrapins, and obviously we've got our game plan, our version. I'm also watching the end of the Missouri-Army game. Missouri up 1, Army driving. We went split pick on this. I went Mizzou, Brian went Army. So we'll see if we're changing the update to the bold pick 'em so far. But, Brian, let's talk about the Hokies game plan. And obviously the number one thing is, can we field a team? I mean,
that's the big thing. Are we going to have enough guys to safely field a team for this game? And I think we are. And that the question right now is, as we're getting closer to game time, we haven't been hit by the COVID bug yet, right? So, a lot of the problems we're dealing with is roster management problems and opt-out problems and guys transferring problems. We don't have, the problems that a Texas A&M is experiencing right now. But we are dealing with gaps in areas of our team because of those reasons I just mentioned. So hopefully something else doesn't come down the pike that's going to make a bad situation worse where we're in a world of hurt on the 29th.
Oh, man. Here we go. They're inside the 40 now. 34 seconds left. They're about 12 yards from field goal range, though. Army kickers. All right, Brian, let's talk about a couple things. Let's talk about offensively. Dude, when me and you talked about this the other day, I'm like, are we going to run the ball? Are we going to pass the ball 10 times? I mean, we got to control the clock, right?
We're going to have to control the clock for sure. We're going to have to limit. We need to maintain the ball just to limit them having opportunities on their offensive side. But we need to lean on our strength, which is our running game. We're still going to have more or less the running dynamics of our offense intact in this game, and we need to take advantage of them. So looking forward to see what's been drawn up to do that. Knowing Corn, we're going to come out and sling it 30 times in the first half, and I don't know what that looks like, but
no.
Right now I'm expecting a very run-heavy, run-oriented quarterback power style offensive attack for this game.
Yeah. And we have to do it because they do have a good passing offense. Plus, again, we looked at the weather forecast. It's not showing snow or anything, but it's still going to be like 40. It's going to be a cold day up there. If they get an Arctic breeze, actually, you know what? Let's go to the weather forecast to what they're saying a week out in New York City. New York predicting next Wednesday, actually 52. So it's going to warm up, but there are going to be some chances of rain showers, potentially snow. So do that. And I think you talk about slinging the ball. We're going to have Jalen Jones. We're going to have, shit, they just got in field goal range. You might be winning this one, buddy. Taking shots, right? Like, if we're going to run the ball a ton, eventually we're going to get those free safeties in the box. It's likely going to be Connor Blomrick back there. He is number one on the depth chart with BB transferring out, but we're going to have to pop some big plays or scheme some big plays. I know you'd love to see like some running back throwbacks and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a couple big plays get hit. Connor does have a stronger arm than Braxton. It's not an accurate arm, but it is a stronger arm. So if he can, if he's able to have the time to step into it and drive the ball downfield, there might be some opportunities to hit some big plays to Jalen Jones, to Dwayne Lofton, to maybe Jaden Payute if he's out there. There's going to be some options, and I'm saying young guys' names because we're not going to have, obviously, Tay Robb is transferred, Trey Turner's opted out. Obviously, James Mitchell's been injured, so it's going full youth movement on the skill positions, especially at the wide receiver range here. So we're going to look to, hopefully hit one or two of those guys downfield a couple times just to, number one, keep them honest, number two, take advantage of some of those mismatches.
Absolutely. Some loaded boxes and some opportunities like that. Well, here's the game. Let's see, 41-yard attempt. We're going to talk about the defense in just a second here, folks, about what we need to do to slow down this Maryland offense. Snap, hold. There's a flag on the play. The field goal is good. What's the flag for? But let's talk about, Brian, bend, don't break defense. I have a feeling because of what they do offensively, if you see us come out in single, high, or zero coverage with the amount of people we're missing, Jermaine Waller not going to play, Amari Barno not going to play, Jordan Williams, you might lose your shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to attack them at their offensive line because they are susceptible there, but we can't just run cover one, cover zero all game and hope for the best. We're going to have to mix things up, and we're going to have to make sure that we keep everything in front of us. So you can still go with those coverage options, but you got to make sure that you don't get beat over the top. If you get beat, it's underneath. It's in areas where guys can come up and make a play, make a tackle. Because if we let them run up and down the field, get some big plays, it's going to be a long game, especially if we get some run after the catch. So definitely bend, don't break is the biggest thing for me. And like I said, just limit those big passing plays because that's what they're going to go for to beat us. And like I said, it's not always going to be shots down the field, but it's going to be getting their playmakers in space where they can make one guy miss and now a 10-yard gain turns into a 30-yard gain. We need to make sure it stays a 10-yard gain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping what we see is a lot of quarters, a lot of cover four, cover threes. I mean, and I think if you're, to be realistic, and Keith mentioned about bringing pressure, we can run quarters and still bring pressure. Now, what has to happen is, you explained this to me before, if we're going to do that, the guys who are sitting back in those zones, they've got to close quick. Like, if we're going to send 5 or 6 and we're going to leave the middle of the fields open, whoever's playing that back zone got to close quickly.
Got to come up in control. Make sure that they make a sound tackle. And so I think cover 6 is going to be probably the most prevalent coverage you see, that quarter half look, where you can bring an outside linebacker, you can bring a nickel, you can bring a corner on a blitz and get home and still have soundness in the back end.
The opportunities will be there. I'm going to just say this. I'm not giving a prediction this week. I'm not. I'm abstaining. I'm abstaining. You can give one. I'm abstaining. It is way too many unknown variables. We have so many people opting out. We don't know who's. We know who's not playing. We don't know what it's looking like behind in practice. We don't know what the hell Corn's going to do in his last game. I'm abstaining. I'm not giving a prediction. I hope the Hokies run all over Maryland's terrible run defense. It is one of the worst in the country. They're one of the worst scoring defenses in the country, giving up over 32 a game. And I hope we can win the game. If we make it a 12-possession game between both teams, we have a shot. But I'm not
Yeah.
giving a prediction this week.
I'll give one just to give the listeners something to criticize me about if I'm wrong. I think it's going to be Maryland, and it's solely based on the opt-outs. They're playing with the full deck. They're not having to really adapt their game plan that they've carried throughout the year. We're more or less having to change how we're doing it or who it's going to in order to even put a team together for this one. So I think it's going to be a struggle. I think we keep it close though, but I just think that they've played too many games together. They have enough talent to probably push them over the edge there and get the win.
All right. Brian takes Maryland. I abstain because I don't know enough about our team right now. All right, Brian. Saturday pick'ems for this year. We ended after the Army-Navy game, you 70, 62-2. Me, 74, 55-2. So far through bowl season with that field goal by the Army kicker, 41 yards. We're both 5-7. This is why we don't do spreads on the bowl games, because it is a pain in the ass. But tonight we have – I texted Brian this, and he was driving, and he went back and said, 29, eh? 29 picks, Brian. We're picking them all.
Lock in, folks.
All right, let's start. Starting tomorrow. Frisco Bowl down in Frisco, Texas. Miami of Ohio and North Texas. I'll take the lead on this. I don't know anything about either of these teams. One's a MAC, one's a Big Green that was in unnecessary roughness. So I'm going to go with the movies here. I'm going to take North Texas to take this game.
I'm kind of with you on this one. I think North Texas, I've heard more about them this year than I've heard about Miami of Ohio, so I'm going to go solely off that. I think North Texas pulls it out. I'm going to let you talk about the next one. I'm going to grab my computer charger before this bad boy dies.
All right. So the next one, y'all, is, well, there's been a lot of heated rivalries about this one. It's UCF, it's Florida, it's in the Gasparilla Bowl. There were some tenacious things going on when UCF, after their big season of going undefeated, they wanted the home and home. Florida was willing to go from home, and then back at the swamp one more time. So a little tumultuous. Also, you got Gus Malzahn, very familiar with Florida from his time down at Auburn. Florida's is much like us underneath a whole regime change. Billy Napier obviously not in place. Also, Billy Napier maybe just needs to quit talking. But Brian, I'm put his earphones back on here. I just gave a synopsis of UCF and Florida, the Gasparilla Bowl. Who are you taking?
I'm going to go with UCF here. I feel like they're the more consistent team, even though Florida's got more talent. I just think UCF probably is the better overall team, more consistent. So let's take UCF here.
I'm going to take Florida. I think I saw a lot from Florida's players, especially in that FSU game. Played hard, didn't quit, clearly like the assistant coach. I'm going to take Florida. That's just going to be an entertaining game to watch on both sides, but I think Florida gets them in the end. All right, Brian. The Hawaii Bowl. Only one team plays in the Hawaii Bowl. It's always Hawaii. This year they're playing your old coach, Silverfield, down at Memphis. And on this one, I'm going to take the home team. Give me Hawaii. They're used to the sun, the surf, and all the fun stuff to do out there. It's just another football game to them. What about you?
I'd normally go with you, but I'm going to be Homer here. I'm going to go Ryan Silverfield in Memphis to pull it out.
I thought you would be. All right, next one, Camellia Bowl on Christmas Day, Ball State and Georgia State. What do you say on this one, Brian?
Let's see, man. I don't know a whole lot about either. I know more about Georgia State than I know about Ball State, so I'll take Georgia State. I think they've got probably more talent top to bottom, so we'll see. I'm going to go Georgia State, though.
All right. I'm going to go Ball State. I know Georgia State's lost a quarterback coach. And
we do know that.
we know. And probably someone who has a lot of input on their offense. So I'm going to go Ball State on this one, just strictly on what I know about that. All right. The always fun Quick Lane Bowl, Western Michigan versus Nevada. You know what? Saw Western Michigan's offense earlier this year. Really put some points on Pitt. Had some other good games as well. I'm going Western Michigan strictly off of beating Pitt.
That's probably not a bad idea. I think I'm going to go with Western Michigan as well here. I haven't seen enough of Nevada play to have a good insight there, but I have seen a couple Western Michigan outcomes, so I'll go with them there.
Right. The Military Bowl, the bowl we're glad we did not get invited to. BC, and it's also two teams that Tech fans hate because they're on the schedule every damn year and they should not be. ECU, BC, Mike Houston doing a hell of a job rebuilding ECU. Same with Hafley up at BC. Can you look up and see if Djokovic is playing? I think he is, isn't he? Because he's coming back, right?
I'm pretty sure he's playing. Yeah, he said he's coming back. So,
all right. So who are you thinking on this one, Brian?
It's BC. It's definitely BC.
Okay.
I just think talent-wise, I think Djokovic's probably played his way back into a little bit of health here. I think they've got the better overall roster. I know ECU's doing some decent things down there now, but I think BC's just got too much talent.
All right. Next, Brian, we are going to go to the Birmingham Bowl, and we've got Auburn coming off a damn near upset of Alabama in the Iron Bowl, and Houston coming off a really good season under Damon Holgerson, basically losing 2 games all year, fighting with Cincinnati in the AAC championship game. This one's a tough one for me, but I'm going to go Houston. Houston's got the consistency. Houston actually has a quarterback where the quarterback for Auburn is now going to be Dan Lanning's quarterback out at Oregon.
Yeah. I'm going Houston, too. I just think Auburn not having Nix, really probably breaking in a brand-new quarterback. They've been up and down throughout the year regardless of that. I think Houston's been the more consistent team, so I'll go with Houston.
All right, both going Houston there in the Birmingham Bowl. All right, this is always interesting. It's the First Responder Bowl, Louisville versus Air Force. What do you say on this one, Brian? This is going to be at the Cotton Bowl.
Oh, man. This is a tough one, but I think I'm going to go Louisville here. They've shown enough flashes throughout the season where I think they probably do just enough to pull that one out.
He's going to go to Louisville. I'm going to match it. It's the usual. Anytime a service academy plays in a bowl game, multiple weeks to prepare for those triple option attacks, it's usually always good things. I fall short tonight, but I also got shown that while we were watching the Tech game, they missed numerous chances inside the 5-yard line. So they were forcing field goals versus kicking, or forcing themselves to make field goals versus kicking touchdowns was Mizzou. So I'm with you on Louisville here. All right, Brian. Liberty Bowl, Texas Tech, Mississippi State, Air Raid, Sonny Cumbie versus Mike Leach. Over, under 110 passes.
Over.
You might hit 130. So who you got, Texas Tech or Mississippi State?
I'm going with the Fighting Leeches. Give me Mississippi State.
Who would that be? Some people still refer to Texas Tech as the Fighting Leeches. He's going to go Mississippi State. I'm going to go Texas Tech here. The guys really fought hard for Cumbie. Cumbie's also being kept on that staff by their new head coach. So I'm going to take Texas Tech with some emotion coming to this game, and the pupil beats the teacher in this one.
Okay.
super interesting matchup next in the Holiday Bowl. UCLA with it's really the dynamic quarterback. I know his first name's Dorian. Why do I want to say Penny Smith? But I know that's a basketball player. But UCLA, NC State. What do you think on this one, Brian? While I look up the name of the player for UCLA because it's going to make me lose my mind.
I'm going to take NC State here. I think their defense is what's going to keep them in this game and lead them to a win. I think their defense is just going to be too much for UCLA.
All right, I'm still efforting this here because I really want to know that kid's name because that is bothering me. NC State's defense, yes, but it's they're flying out west. I'm not sure what time that game is going to be. Just a second here, because now that's interesting me. I feel like they always do this game at like 9, not like 10 or 11. So another second here. Definitely NC State's probably had their best season where, UCLA actually not had a bad season. 8 o'clock kick, so not terrible for NC State. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was their quarterback who kind of lit it up this year, both rushing and passing. But I'm with you. NC State, better defense, better overall offense. NC State for the win there. All right, Brian. What do you prefer? Bow ties or sweater vests or bib overalls?
Man, that's a great question. In this game, I mean,
West Virginia, Minnesota. It's just had to make the joke there.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I'm leaning on this one. This was one where.
All right, well, let me help you. I'm taking Minnesota.
You taking Minnesota?
I'll
take West Virginia just for the shits and giggles. Then.
I think Minnesota's they didn't have a great year, but there were way too many games where West Virginia could easily be a 4 or 3 win team this year. Our game is one of them. There are a few other ones where they literally could have lost and not even been close. Probably Neil Brown gets fired this year. So Brian's going to take the Cousins. I'm going to take the sweater vest and row in your boat and PJ Fleck. All right. Speaking of Cousins, our other Cousins playing the Fenway Bowl up in Boston versus SMU. And on this one, Brian, depending on what the Boston weather is going to be next Tuesday, which I have that on my phone as well, so let's do some forecasting there. Because these are two heavy throw offenses. 46 and potential rain. I'm going to go SMU. Even though there's a coaching change there.
Well, they're both dealing with coaching changes.
We know UVA does not have a rushing offense. So I'm going to take SMU in this case.
Yeah, I'm taking SMU. They do have a semblance of a running game, even though they like to sling it around a lot. UVA has none of that. Both of them are missing their head coaches, a lot of their staff. So I'll take SMU.
Yeah, but SMU's had a little bit more time to prep, and that's probably one of those big things that, you have to kind of think about, right?
Yep.
SMU's known since really going on 4 weeks ago, Sonny Cumbie was going to TCU, as compared to UVA literally found out during bowl practice, oh, Bronco's leaving. Like, oh, shit, he is? What are we supposed to do here? So, yep, we're both on the SMU train to win up there. All right, this is a really interesting matchup next, Brian. Cheez-It Bowl, it seems like every year this bowl is a really good matchup down in Orlando. This year is no different. Clemson versus Iowa State. What do you got on this one, man?
Yeah, this one's a hard one for me because Iowa State's probably played better overall, but Clemson played better, I think, to close the year out. They're also losing their offensive coordinator. I think just from a consistency standpoint, I'm going to go Iowa State here.
Broncos, Iowa State. I think the big piece for Clemson and why I'm picking them is even though they're losing Tony Elliott, Streeter's taken over. Streeter's been in DJ's ear all year. DJ's played better. I also think on this one, it's going to be an ugly game. I don't know what the over-under is on this one. I have not looked that up. I'd take the under because you've got two hard-nosed defenses that really can play. I think the offensive talent of a guy like DJ or Shipley or Justin Ross, can't remember. I think Ross might have opted out. I think Clemson has one or two more playmakers to win this game, something like 23-17.
Okay.
All right. Get some interesting here. Oklahoma, again, we're going to leave you bowl. Oklahoma, Oregon, and the Alamo Bowl. Oh, man. Lanning's there. Venables isn't. I don't know who to pick in this game. Can I abstain from this one? Because we keep records of this.
You got to pick.
I'll go Oregon. I feel like Oregon, it wasn't as a shot as it was to Oklahoma. Like, I think Oregon kind of knew in the back of their mind, if Miami comes open, Mario's probably going to win. So, I'll take Oregon.
I'm not with that. I think Oklahoma has a little bit more consistency in terms of the interim that they put in place and things like that. So I think that Oklahoma is going to be in a better situation.
Who is interim down in Oklahoma right now?
Did they put Stoops in there?
Oh, yeah, Stoops is. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I don't know who the Oregon one is. I just think it's a lot of bitter pills to swallow there, even though Rattler's off the team with a couple other guys. I'll take Oregon. I'll say this. I think that game's going to go way over.
Yeah.
Way over. As the Alamo Bowl seems every year to go over. I don't think I've ever seen the Alamo Bowl go under, and I'm probably wrong. All right. Dear Lord. Did you see the Potato Bowl last night?
I did.
Did you see the dumping of the potatoes?
It was epic.
It was. But Shane Beamer and Mac Brown have both said if they win, they're going to take the mayonnaise bath. The Duke's Mayo Bowl, UNC versus USC, South Carolina. Brian, who do you have in this game of Shane or the team we probably hate the most?
You know what? This is a game of the overachievers versus the underachievers, and I'm going to take the overachievers. I'm going to take the Fighting Shane Beamers.
All right. I'm going to be exact opposite of you on that, man. I'm going to take the underachievers with the month to prep. And, well, hold on. Is Sam Howell playing? That's going to be my determining factor. Is Sam Howell playing? Is Sam Howell playing? If Sam Howell's playing, I'm taking UNC. If not, I'm going to follow you.
I haven't followed him enough to.
All right, well, hold on a second. I'm going to get this while I type it up back here.
He's playing in the bowl game.
Yep. Give me UNC. Give me UNC.
Fair enough.
With prep. All right. The Hendon Hooker Bowl, the Music City Bowl. Tennessee versus Purdue. Folks going to roll Purdue. Purdue does not have a good defense. It's probably going to be a good shootout. I think Tennessee has more talent. And Hooker.
Yeah, I'm taking the Fighting Hookers as well. So give me Tennessee. I think they. It's not a blowout, but I think they handle them pretty good, start to finish.
All right. Next, this is where we kind of get into some of the better bowls. The Peach Bowl, Pitt without Kenny Pickett, and a Heisman finalist, and Michigan State without Kenneth Walker, one of the best running backs in the country this year. Who are you taking in this game of the best players on our offense aren't playing?
I'm taking Michigan State, and I'm taking them solely because I think running back is an easier position to replace, and I think that if Pitt had Kenny Pickett, I'd be all over Pitt because of Michigan State's secondary. But without Kenny Pickett, it's Michigan State.
Absolutely. You took the words out of my mouth. Michigan State is so bad on the back end. Pickett probably could have made himself a few more. Probably went from being the 15 to 20 to potentially being a top 10 pick if he plays in this game. But he doesn't. You know what it is, right? After doing that fake slide bullshit, Kenny's fucking afraid that he does that again, he's gonna get his fucking head taken off by somebody. I'm sure Mel Pucker would be like, "Oh, he looks like he's gonna slide. Just go
head hunt."
Michigan State rolls. I think they win by 2 touchdowns because you're going to throw a guy who's thrown the ball 24 times out there against that. I don't know how many fast that's this. All right, here's an interesting one, Brian. Vegas Bowl, which this bowl now. Remember, Vegas Bowl used to be the bowl before Christmas.
Yeah.
It looks like one of the bowls right near New Year's. Wow, I'm shocked with the big, nice new stadium. I wonder why they've done that. Arizona State, Wisconsin. Can the ACC get?
You mean they're not playing at UNLV Stadium anymore?
No. By the way, I mean, I feel like the Vegas Bowl, like, if you're the Power 5 conferences, everybody should be stomping like, listen, we need to rotate this bowl game amongst all 5 of us so we can always send somebody there because we know we will sell out.
Yep.
Wisconsin, Zona State. What do you say?
I think I'm going to go with Zona State here. Wisconsin, a little down this year in terms of what we're used to from them. They might not have a certain coach on their staff at some point in the near future, so I don't know if that's a change. So I'm going to go with Zona State here.
Okay.
You play to win the game.
You play to win the game. Firm place to win the game. Both 8-4. Both up and down. I just feel like Wisconsin was more consistent. They had some games this year where they could have probably won and they lost. I'm going to go Wisconsin, even though a certain person might not be there. We don't know the full status of that yet. We're still waiting on it. We're really hoping it happens, but until it's announced, we're going to keep our mouth shut. But everything's out there. Everything's blowing. You're seeing Wisconsin fans talk about it openly.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, Gator Bowl, Wake or whoever the hell they play?
I'm taking Wake.
I'm taking Wake. We move on. Texas A&M, as we talked about earlier, out because of the virus protocol. Personally, I think Texas A&M just didn't want to play in the game. They probably have like 6 guys that are in virus protocol, and they're like, we can't make it. It's not what they want to do because they want to play in big games like New Year's Day games. All right, we got a couple more before we hit the New Year's Day and the 2 big ones on New Year's Eve.
Yep.
All right, Brian. The Sun Bowl, Miami versus Wazoo. Miami, kind of good down the stretch. I'm going to take Miami in this game. Wazoo, even though they're keeping – actually, take that back. I forgot. Wazoo hired their interim, didn't they? Wazoo, 520.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Miami. I think they pull it out.
All right. If Cristobal's coaching the game or having some involvement, I'd go that. But remember, Wazoo – fire Rolovich earlier in the year, then hire his interim. They were borderline going to make the Pac-12 championship, had a chance, so we'll go there. All right, the Arizona Bowl by Barstool, Boise versus Central Michigan. What do you say on this one?
I'm going to take Central Michigan here.
The Pimp.
Yeah, got to support Pimp here.
Got to support Pimp. I'm with you. Boise definitely not their usual brand, kind of down this year, so I'm with you on Pimp. All right, Brian. Those games are actually New Year's Eve, so write that on your calendar. The next games are New Year's Day, and then we're going to double back for the playoff games. Outback Bowl, Arkansas versus Penn State. Brian, I'm just going to be straight up with you. Arkansas has impressed me all year. Penn State does not have Brent. He's a Hokie now. Penn State, I'm not sure of the opt-outs, but just give me Arkansas. I think it's just one of those games where that team competed with everyone they played with the exception of Georgia, took Bama to the limit. Give me Arkansas. First big bowl for them in a while.
Yeah, I'm going to lean Arkansas here as well. And for many of the reasons that you said, I think Brent Pry factor obviously in place, and then you've got some trickle down to the other positions with opt-outs and things like that. So I think the combination of those two, I think Arkansas, it's theirs to lose.
All right. One of the New Year's Six bowls right here, Brian. We've already discussed one. Notre Dame Fighting Irish against Oklahoma State, two of the best defenses in the country. Who do you got in this, what looks like the potential defensive struggle down in the desert?
I want to give this one to Okie State. I think
Okay.
I was leaning Irish, but I think Okie State has probably a bad taste in their mouth the way things wrapped up for them. I think they want to get one back.
All right. I would agree with you there most of the time, but I think in this case, hiring Marcus Freeman, keeping that continuity going on, Tommy Rees staying on as offensive coordinator, and you talk about a bounce back. How do you bounce back from literally jumping 2 inches short? If that kid takes off 2 inches later, one step later, a half a step later, there's discussion that they're playing Alabama in the Cotton Bowl.
Yep.
I don't think the bounce back happens. I think the Irish win this game. I still think it's going to be a hard hitting. It's going to be a tight game, but give me the Irish.
All right, bud.
All right, in the Citrus Bowl, we've got Iowa versus Kentucky. Man, this is another underfest here. Who are you taking? Actually, I'll leave this one. Give me Iowa. Give me Iowa in this one. I think Iowa's a little more consistent. I'll take Iowa.
I'll take Kentucky. I like their way of controlling the clock, controlling the flow of the game. So I think they're going to do that a little bit better than Iowa overall.
Over under 12 possessions for this game.
Under.
Everybody's getting 5 drives, 6 minutes apiece. Be ready for them. Actually, be ready for when Iowa or Kentucky have the 11-play, 89-yard drive that literally lasts.
There's going to be 4 of those. What are you talking about?
Brian looking for a parlay bet. I want to go over 8+ minute drives. All right, Brian, granddaddy of them all. Rose Bowl, Utah versus Ohio State. What do you think on this one?
I think it's going to be Ohio State. I think they're going to be able to throw the ball a lot better than they did against Michigan. I think that's going to be the difference. I like Utah, but I think Ohio State's just going to have a little too much gas.
I agree with you. Ohio State, a little bit too much gas. Utah, good defensively. Got the right quarterback finally. Got rid of Charlie Brewer. Sent him over to Liberty. Although that kid needs to retire, seriously. I think it's one of those games. Utah hangs in there until about late third quarter. Ohio State puts the hammer down. They end up winning like 38-24, 38-28. I think it's going to be a good game, but eventually that. Sugar Bowl. You want to talk about two contrasting styles. Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, wide open, go for it on fourth down, sling it all over the place, versus Dave Aranda and Baylor, slow it down, play tough-nosed defense. Do you like tough-nosed defense, Brian, or do you like slinging it around?
I like slinging around as much as the next person, but I think tough-nosed defense wins this one. So I'm going to take Baylor.
All right. I'm going to go against you. As much as I want to agree that tough-nosed usually wins most of the time, I think Lane is feeling himself. I think he's going to throw a few really, really trick plays out. And I think Ole Miss ends up winning this one. Well, Brian, we have got to number 28 and 29.
The big ones.
We are 2 hours and 10 minutes in. We expected Keith to last about 30, but I think the second you pulled him on before we were doing the pregame, I think
you knew right there. I was like, yeah, this is going to run more than 30.
We're going more than 30. Well, the fact with Keith is again, I go back to thinking 94, and I'm like, dude, you play with all these guys, crazy. But something we talked about in the 1993, 94, and 95 were the precursors to what we have today. We had the big success and then this. In 1994, when Penn State didn't play Nebraska, 93 when Notre Dame didn't get a chance at Nebraska, it started where we're at today. And while we're going to be at 12 in just a few short years, yeah, I said 12, we ain't going to 8. But Brian, the Cotton Bowl, Cinderella, Cincinnati versus the Death Star in Alabama.
Yep.
You started the last one. I'm going to start this one. I think this is going to be more of a game than people think. I think Fickell's got a hell of a defensive mind, and I think where we have seen it is at times Bama against good defenses has struggled. Now, the breaking news today, I can't flip my prediction with Bill O'Brien and Doug Marrone, the OC, the quarterback coach, and the offensive line coach being out there in virus protocol. So they're going to be at the game coaching, but they're not going to be there for install. I think Bama wins this one, but I think this is a hell of a lot closer than the experts think. It's at 14 or at like 13.5. I think this is like an 8 or 9 point.
I think it's closer than that. I think it's a touchdown late to give it to Bama. I still think Bama pulls it out. But this is going to show that a G5, really good G5 team can belong in this scenario, and it's going to set the stage for when we get to 12.
A G5 team deserves a shot every year, just like some P5 teams. Ask Brian. I sent him a soliloquy and a essay on the 12-team playoff, which we might talk about in the early part of next year. Brian got to read about 8,000 words. Sorry, buddy. All right. Last one, Orange Bowl down in Miami. Georgia versus Michigan. What do you think on this one, Brian? A lot of contrasting the styles here.
You know what? I think the biggest factor is going to be is that, you know, Michigan is more or less riding a good wave right now. And I think that, you know, there's going to be a lot of continuity with their staff. They know who they're working with. They're not focused on other things. I think that's going to be the thing that carries Michigan over the top there.
I'm with you. Consistency. I mean, these two teams are a lot of mirror images of each other, especially defensively. I think where offensively is Josh Gaddis has a few more tricks up his sleeves than Georgia does. I think Georgia's run the ball, take some shots, screens. Where you saw in the Iowa game, Gaddis he unleashed a few things. And I really think after seeing Bama do what they did, and, you know, Will Anderson, you got a guy like Aiden Hutchinson on the edge with Michigan. I think Michigan wins this game 24-17, and I think it sets up for 1-2 big programs, 2 big personalities at the national championship, which unfortunately is on a Monday, not a Thursday. All right, buddy. This is our last episode of the year. And this has been one hell of a year. And I say that because of everything that's happened this year on this podcast, in our personal lives, with Hokie football. There's a lot of thank yous to go out this year. When we started this thing about 22 months ago, I don't think we ever envisioned getting the amount of followers we have, the amount of listens. You know, last year when we were averaging, 75 listens, right?
A little bit higher than that, but yeah, I mean, we were still building. We're still building, and I mean, in the last
6 months?
6 months we've doubled. We're pretty much 500 an episode now, which is that's a credit to everybody listening right now. It's a credit to kind of what we've been. Yeah, it's a credit to y'all sticking with us and thinking that we're bringing something different to the table than that's out there.
Yeah, we really appreciate it because, believe it or not, we would be probably talking 2+ hours of Hokie football and college football regardless during the week. And that's why we decided to do it. We're going to do this anyway. We might as well put something out here and people listen to what people have to say about what we think. You guys have been awesome interacting, whether it be through DMs, messages, ratings, reviews. It's really been awesome. And this year we've had so many guests, and we're going to thank every one of them, starting with 247 with Evan joining us back in February, Dwight Vick.
Yeah, we had Dwight. We've had Brett Ciancia joining us back in the summer. Christina Garnett jumped on with us when we were looking at the marketing of the program. Obviously, the great legend Daryl Tapp.
He pulled up the lunch pail.
Yeah, exactly. And we just saw this last week. We had Jeremy Counts and Jonathan Talley jump on with us. Whole lot of fun. Friends chopping it up.
Mike McDaniel joining us back in the summer was a great episode where I think we might have had one too many drinks that night when Mike had a great time. Former Hokie offensive lineman Austin Cannon here in the RBA joined us, getting ready for camp. So many guys, and did we get everybody, Brian?
We forgot our good buddy Robbie Compton joining us for the camp episode as well. So,
Coach Robbie Compton, who will be joining us definitely in the early part of next year. Robbie's already agreed to help us take a look at some of Brent Fry's defensive tape and do that breakdown from his perspective as a defensive coach and a defensive coordinator. So, lots of thank yous. And Brian, I'm not going to be amiss that we also lost somebody this year. And y'all heard about it back during the Syracuse week. Our buddy Brian Wilkerson, he passed earlier this year. It's a piece of my Hokie, heart that's gone forever.
Yep.
It's a buddy who would chime in on this podcast, who would text and give us shit if we said something he didn't like. And so I'm gonna say this, and I didn't mention to you before, but I'm gonna dedicate this season to Brian's memory. I'm gonna miss that guy, man.
Absolutely. We miss you, buddy.
Miss him. All right, Brian, is anything broken? Did we do some weird 11 o'clock midnight dropping? Because we've gone 2 hours and 20 minutes, one of our longest episodes ever. Did anything break?
Not that I know of, man. Nothing big broke.
Nothing big broke. All right. Well, for the last time in 2021, that is going to wrap up this episode of the Boundary Corner Podcast. I am Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Visit our website, boundarycornerbt.com, to listen to all of our episodes. While you are there, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, and your favorite podcast source, including Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. We let our buddy Jason Long play us in, play us out every week. We thank you for listening. Catch him on Spotify and Apple Music. We thank you for listening to us. And as always, Brian, let's go.
Hokies!